be doing another introduction as we go live on wherever we're going live on. Good morning and welcome. We are coming to you from beautiful Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston. I am Reverend Ed Tansey, and I, along with Reverend G. Stewart, are privileged to be the co-founders and spiritual leaders of this wonderful spiritual family here in Cambridge. At this center, we learn and practice the science of mind philosophy, which is the study of life, and the nature of the laws of thought. I invite you to go to our website, cslboston.org, to find out more about our spiritual family here and see how our community can serve you and how you can support our community through your tax-deductible contributions.
So I just want to wish everyone a happy Earth Day. Yay. Because this is the time we remember and love our planet. And so I just want to do that. I want to welcome our Facebook friends as they have come to visit us via the live stream. So we are just so grateful for all of this.
So, the 2018 Center for Spiritual Living's theme is 100 Years of Science of Mind. And the April theme is Where Humanity and Divinity Meet. And my talk today, now last week, Travis, you had a beautiful thing happening, so I found a different way to introduce my slide here today. Look at that. Okay. The topic is, I am eternally young and spiritually mature. I am eternally young and spiritually mature. So when I first thought about this topic, I really believe that one rests on the foundation of the other concerning being eternally young and spiritually mature. So let's look at what it means to be spiritually mature first, because I believe this is the foundation of me realizing I'm eternally young. So spiritual maturity is when I learn and I practice the spiritual truths. And as I learn them, as I embody them and practice them, I apply the principles in my life. It is applying these principles, people, in my life, and as I do this, my faith strengthens, and my trust in divine life grows. I call this the strengthening of my spiritual muscle. I come to the realization that there is a higher order unfolding in my life, a higher order. And as my thoughts align with God mind, I tap into the divine ideas and principles that support me in the creation of all that is good, that is all for my highest and best good. I realize that there is one higher power, which is the same power and presence that is in everyone, no matter what their religion may be or what their faith may be. And that there is this presence of the divine that is always uplifting us, always nurturing us, and always guiding us. So you see, to me, being in that state of a heightened consciousness and the vibration, along with knowing that God, the divine in me, as me, and through me, is me being spiritually mature. Now, Here's a reading I got from Creative Ideas. It was so long I didn't want to put it on there, so I showed you the picture of the book and Ernest Holmes. So here's what I found, and I want to share this. It says, "The wise have said that spirit produces everything, nourishes everything, and maintains everything. It flows through and is in all things, being all that is. There is nothing outside of it. There is a spiritual presence pervading our consciousness, always proclaiming itself to be the source of our being. The enlightened ones of the ages have told us that our recognition of life is God within, recognizing itself in everything we do." So you see, as I spiritually mature, it is really me embodying the truths about God, about my God, that it is a presence in me as well as everyone else, that I am made in its image and likeness as well as everyone else, that I am one of its creations as well as everyone else, and also that God is eternal. Therefore, I am eternal. That nature and flow of the divine is my nature, and the flow that is mine is the flow of everyone else's. And again, for me, this constitutes more of me being more and more spiritually mature. Now, for me to stay in this consciousness, it requires me, pay attention to this, to daily and consistently, I'm going to repeat this, daily and consistency, to do my spiritual practices. That's a very important key here. These spiritual practices strengthen the muscle, as I talked to you about earlier. These consistent daily practices help me keep in alignment with my Creator and all of its truths. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Remember, when I am in alignment and rooted in that truth, I get to experience all that is good, all that is mine to experience because of who and whose I am. All that is always for my highest and best good, fully knowing and fully realizing that irregardless of what might appear, God is always working for everyone's highest and best good. I'll just throw this in. Patience also helps. Patience. Be patient, people. So all that I've mentioned so far is the foundation for me having that consciousness and that faith and that knowing that I am eternally young. I am eternally young. So now, let's ponder eternally young. So when I came upon this statement, I am eternally young, here are some of the words and thoughts that initially popped into my head. Young, age, creation, old, spry, decrepit. That's quite an array of words coming to me. So these thoughts kept swirling and swirling into my mind. So I said, as I began to talk to myself, I do that kind of on a regular basis, Rivet, let's get a grasp of all of this. Let's get a hold on this and come up with an understanding of this and achieve the understanding. So, of course, what I did, I immediately went to the Science of Mind text and found this in that book that helped me get a grasp, an understanding of what I was just saying. So here's a brief paragraph that I found there that it was entitled The Endless Creation. world without end. This refers to the endless creation of the Almighty. Particular worlds will always begin and end, as do cabbages and kings. But creation itself, the necessity of God's manifesting himself in time and space, will never end. If creation could end, then God would end. As this is unthinkable, it follows that worlds without end, or worlds without end, are necessary to the expression of spirit. So for me, when I thought of world or worlds not ending, what I really believe Dr. Holmes was referring to was all of the many and different planes of vibration that is out there, planes of experiences, planes of consciousness that one attains as they transition from one plane to the next. As they leave one state of vibration and go on to the next. This really helped me understand eternality. So it's been written time and time again that each cell of our physical body is completely replaced every 14 months. So when I look at that body, I say, every 14 months the cells are kind of new. So in actuality, as strange as it may sound, no one here or anywhere is more than a year and a half old physically. That makes me feel real good. To have all that energy that a year and a half old being experiences, that brought me more to life. So it also has been written in so many books that there is no reason to suppose that our minds grow old. That our mind is as young at 90 as it is at 9. That the only thing that is added to it is experience. So I guess it depends where you are in that spectrum about experience. When you're at the beginning of your experience, now I'm kind of here in my experience. So I love reading all of this and hearing that. It just brings more of a vibrancy to me. So many psychologists agree that with all of these experiences, and as the years advance, that we learn less rapidly. I agree on that. But we learn consistently, we learn certainly and accurately. Just as certain and accurate as we did at 9, as we do at 90. How did that sit with you? That was pretty good for me. So some scientists have said that while time exists, I love this one, there is no such thing as age. Age does not exist. That in reality, time is not a way of measuring years or months or days, but rather it's a way of measuring one's experience in a limitless life. I love that. A way of measuring one's experience in a limitless life. So if this is true in a broad sense, that neither the mind nor the body actually grows old, then really what do you think produces the aging process? Anybody have an idea?
Consciousness, thought.
Consciousness, what? You're reading my notes, good? Oh, okay. Well, all right. I believe that the aging process really has to do when one thinks, as you said, themselves, I'm going to go a little deeper, as separate from God. And in that separation, and in doing that, what we do is we're storing up and creating within ourselves a burden of care and worry in our minds about the process of aging. Okay? So believing and embodying this, following, that God's mind is the only mind that there is, and God is eternal. Therefore, we live because God lives in us, and we are able to think because the mind of God is also in us. Okay? So the aging process has to do, as you said, Martine, with our consciousness. When we see ourselves separate from God, that's our consciousness. That's what it has to do with. So, as individuals, we are all expressions of God. We have the right of choice. We have the right of choice. And nature does not interfere with this. Nature does not interfere with this. As we permit ourselves to store up and entertain all of the burdens of care and worries that are in our mind, that aids in the aging process. So as Rev G, what's the name? The name of the thing we see on the YouTube? Stop it!
Oh,
Stop it! What is that?
Bob Newhart.
Bob
Stop.
Newhart. Have you seen that on YouTube? He goes, stop it! Stop it! So people, I say to you, stop it! Stop it with that consciousness of getting you into that aging process. You have the power to do this. So we say as religious scientists that God is life and life is God. You see, life really maintains a phenomenal factory in our human body. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes and take this in, what I'm saying now. Close your eyes. I'd like you to look at the human body as a factory. It has a furnace that generates heat. It has a chemical plant to purify and dispose of all the different poisons that might come around. There is even a maintenance crew that keeps the machinery in order. There is a lubricating system that keeps all of the joints oiled. There is a transportation system that carries supplies from one part of the body to the other parts of the body. There is also an inter-office communication system that aids in this factory called the human body. So now you may open your eyes. You just went and had a little tour of the human factory, the human body. Now let's not forget that this one mind that is God is very capable, people, of running the factory of the human body in perfect order. Did you hear what I said? In perfect order. The factory runs beautifully. It runs beautifully when there is no interference with the laws of God, the laws of the divine, the laws of our Creator, whatever you want to refer your higher power to. God's mind, people, is capable of running this factory of ours, the factory that we call our human body. As long as we don't throw wrenches of doubt and fear into the machinery. As long as we don't overload the communication system and the transportation system. And how do I do this? How do I overload them? See who's paying attention. How do I overload these systems? By what? Fear, doubt, separation, with the burdens of grief and worry. So see, when grief and worry, what does that do to your face? It makes lines. So you don't need all those creams. Just forget doing the grief and worry. So you don't need the cream. Just work with your consciousness, people. It's very simple. It's not rocket science. So we need to ask ourselves, really, how is it and why is it that we arrive at the place where we stop trusting the divine? That we stop trusting in that divine architect who created the factory to begin with, who is capable of running this so beautifully and perfectly. That's the question. Would you agree? Thank you. So in Job chapter 33, verse 22, it states, if there be one among the thousands to shew unto man his rightness, his flesh should be fresher than a child's. He shall return to the days of his youth. Now, this is not saying, people, that we want to go back to all of the ways we had in childhood. That's not what it's getting at, all of those former years. What it is saying, I believe, is to keep the child we experienced in our youth. To keep all of its joy, all of its wonderment, all of its freshness of perspective, its energy, its activeness, all of its zest for life. Do you remember that child?
Yes.
Okay. And by keeping the child alive in us, we go on our journey here. When we keep that alive, we don't become burdened with the years that have passed. Remember, every day we awake is a fresh beginning. Every day is like a world that has been made new. So further, the passage doesn't mean, let's get this straight, that we recapture the physical body we had when we were a child. It's not about that. But rather that we recognize the youth of that physical body, which we now have. Because, as I previously said, that 1.5 year thought, that there's no cell in the body that's over 1.5 years old. That's one of my favorites. You know, I'm so young, hey. So youth is in every muscle of our body, in every fiber of our being. And I believe this is why Jesus likened the kingdom of heaven to a child. So with this said, I think we need to look at the mental attitude of a child if we need to recapture those dreams we had as a child that we might now have lost. You get that? All right, so remember, when you were young, you had so much to look forward to. That each day was crowded with things to do. Each day was exciting. Each day brought happiness. You couldn't hardly wait to get up in the morning to begin it all over again. Another day, because you had such enthusiasm. You had such expectations. So the first third of one's life is spent in the enjoyment of the day in which that person was living. There is always something, or there was always something more ahead of what was coming up. So the first third of our lives is when we're learning, we're studying to find ways of doing things, we're getting ready to live a larger and in grander ways. And usually during that time, we weren't afraid. Remember that? We felt invincible, that we could do anything. So, as one goes on racking up more experiences in their life, sometimes referred to as getting older, which I do not like that word, older. And I'm going to show you something that is very important. A little off track, but I love the little story. I went to my doctor some years ago, and he says, Ed, now that you're getting older, I says, no, we don't use that word in front of Ed. We never. I says, we use the word vintaged, because as I vintage, I get better like wine. So one of my students that some of you might have met at our installation, Al, he and his wife were vacationing, and they found this, and they says, oh, we have to get that for Ed. Isn't that precious? It's a towel, a dish towel that says, I'm not old, I'm vintage. So this was a gift I just received, and how apropos it fits into my drawer. So anyway, now I'll get back to where I was going.
Show and tell.
Yeah, had to show and tell. It was beautiful. So with all of this, you start reaching maturity. You know, you still have the world ahead of you. Now, what usually happens at that stage is that, like, you know, you could start getting a family, you could maybe fall in love, You could get involved with a spouse. You could get, you could get jobs that would help you in relation to how you want to live, or getting that house you want to live in, the kind of life you want to lead, the car you would like to own. And you might be living with a family in your life, or today, whatever you want to call it, because there's so many different examples of that. And so all the things that you previously did before that little second stage, you were getting ready for, for something bigger and grander. And now what you are doing is you are now doing it for a family, and you're more involved in ways that you did when you were in the first part of your life. So that usually all happens in the first half of one's life, of their journey, okay? Now, what happens after that? People don't grow old when they're busy, right? When you find that you're busy, do you might maybe think that, you're getting older, you think of this ache, you think of this pain, whatever. So, when you're busy with all of the pleasures of living, and with all of the enjoyment, all of the experiences and expectations and enthusiasm, and all that's to come, that just keeps you going. It keeps you full of that vigor, as I call it. So what happens too often when the first half passes, and for some, how can I put this? They have nothing else to look forward to. There's not that much more. I'm not saying everyone. I said for some. There is not enough to look forward to. They feel the excitement has gone out of their life. So they think they're getting tired. They think, that the zest of living has gone out of their life. You think you're getting tired. All of the wonderment has gone out of your life. You think you're getting tired. So that's when one says, the kick has gone out of my life. I believe it's just that they're closing down. They're not being open. So a person is really invigorated when they're involved in life, when they are creative, when they feel that they're making a difference in the world and all of the lives around them, when they are in service to people, when they share the joys of living with others. That's what I believe keeps people invigorated. That's what I believe keeps people happy and youthful. So by having and keeping an active interest in life, one will always have that element of surprise and wonder in simple daily things. Remember, life is an activity. Would you agree?
Yes.
And when you stop being active, what you're really doing is turning yourself away from all of the new things that could come up in your life every day. All of the excitement, all of the wonder that there is to experience. The person who grows old in years without this inward expectation that he or she is going to live forever, okay, if you have that expectation, you usually find that the last part of your life is burdened with the thoughts of the past and with the thoughts of yesterday. So when one makes up their mind, people, that the past is gone, this would benefit many of us, that tomorrow has not yet arrived, today can be filled with that wonder, with that joy, and with that enthusiasm. If we know that, we will stand on the threshold of that which is wonderful and new. See what I mean? So I believe what also helps people in the third part of their life is that while having this attitude and this consciousness of what we just talked about, this key is very important, and that word is faith. Okay? Faith in knowing that there is something bigger and greater than we are. Faith in a power greater than we are individually. And faith in complete assurance that each of us are going to live forever somewhere on some plane, in some vibration. People, we are eternal beings. We never die. The essence of who each and every one of us are never dies. All that we are doing is transitioning. We're going to different planes. We're going to different vibrations. And to have this faith as we go on is what makes the third part of your life so magnificent, so wonderful, so full of excitement, where you can be active. You can be full of life. Here's another key. If you so choose. I'm going to repeat it. If you so choose. You can think totally different. I'd rather not go there. Not for me. So my desire for each and every one of us is to learn more and more of this science of mind philosophy, and that our lives are tied with the divine, tied with God, whatever you want to call that higher power. And the bottom line is that we can remain young and enthusiastic if we so choose, because we realize that we're one with the divine, one with spirit. And spirit knows no age, and has no worry, and has no burden. Remember, God is limitless. God only knows good. There is no burden. So please keep in mind that youth is not a time of life. It's a state of mind. I want to repeat it. It is not a time of life. It is a state of mind. No one grows old by living a number of years. People only grow old by deserting their ideals. So, here's a quote from Living the Science of Mind that I found in Living the Science of Mind. I love this one. Years wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. Worry, doubt, self-distrust, fear, and despair. These are the long, long years that bow the head and turn the spirit back to dust. So remember, it doesn't matter if you're 80 or 10, 70 or 20. My hope here is that everyone lives in that love of wonder and amazement and undaunted challenges of events, and have like a childlike appetite for what is next in your lives. And that life doesn't leave you. So I will close by this quote that I found from Living the Science of Mind again. You are as young as your faith, as old as your doubt, as young as your confidence, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, as old as your despair. Namaste. So I'd like to do a spiritual mind treatment at this point. So if you feel comfortable, I ask you to close your eyes. And the purpose of this treatment this morning is that I know that each one here and throughout the universe, as each becomes spiritually mature, that each one feels eternally young. And coming from this purpose, I know from the depths of my being that one Creator, the giver of all, the sustainer of all, the doer of all, that I call God, is in, through, and as everything, seen and unseen. The flow of this presence, its nature, is young, vitality, maturity, love, compassion, joy, excitement. That is the nature of God. And there is no place that this flow is not. I am one with this power. I am one with this energy. I am one with this life. I am one with this vibration. And as that is my truth, that is the truth of each and every one here and each and every one throughout the cosmos. Each one is that unique, perfect, individualized expression of the divine. Each one is inseparable from Source. Each one is made in the image and likeness of God. And each one is one with each other, one with nature. There is an interconnectedness that makes a foundation of love for each and every individual. And I now speak the word right here and now this morning for all. That as one walks their journey, and as one realizes who and whose they are, they spiritually mature. And from this comes an understanding and an embodiment that each one is eternally young, that no one dies. Everyone transitions throughout their journeys. They transition, each one transitions to different planes of consciousness. And as each one does in their own way, the magnificence and greatness of the divine is experienced in every plane visited. I am so grateful that I know this truth for all. I am grateful that I hold this truth, that I call forth this truth, that I embody this truth for all. I am grateful for all. And I walk in gratitude as I realize all that it means to be eternally young. I now release this prayer into the law of cause and effect, the law of infinite possibilities, fully knowing that this is done in the mind of the divine. Therefore, this is done in each and everyone's mind, because each one is one. I release it. I say amen, women, hallelujah, and join me by saying, and so it is. And here's the affirmation that we can say together, if you feel comfortable. And it was written by Reverend Ed Tansey, whoever that may be. Okay, affirmation. I am vibrantly alive in all areas of my life as I live authentically, enthusiastically, creatively, joyfully, and purposely. I'd like to say that one more time. Everyone. I am vibrantly alive in all areas of my life as I live authentically, enthusiastically, creatively, joyfully, and purposefully. Thank you. And so it is. Have a wonderful birthday, everyone.